You are listening to a special show here on King Jordan Radio. It is the 10-year anniversary of Michael Jackson Found Innocent. And let's go back to our panel, which is Kerry Anderson, which is William Wagner, and which is Miss Geraldine Hughes. Now you heard the clip that I just played, and we'll get into that, but we'll also get into Kerry Anderson. You scheduled sometime soon to come out with a book, correct?
Yeah, that's correct, and I've had some, unforeseen occurrences in my family dealing with my parents' health, and it's kind of really put everything on the back burner as it relates to the book because they are a priority. I think the life that they provided me, they should enjoy, the latter part of their life, and I should do whatever I can. That's the number one priority. And one of the things about my book, my book, is that I wanted it to be just so good, and it requires my full attention, and I don't need any type of distraction like this. And right now, it's on the back burner, and I don't even want to release a date because I don't want to tell people I'm going to release a date anymore. I wanted it to come out, to be out actually today. But it's not going to be out, obviously, on this date. And I'm not going to give a date. I just say that it is going to be amazing when it does come out. And just stay tuned. I'm going to have it on all kind of ebooks, and I'm going to go through the whole gamut of everything as it relates to getting it out all over the world. I'm going to have it translated in several languages, and it's going to be a good book because some of the things that I experienced with Michael, I have not discussed to this point, and I'll get into some very intricate details of our relationship, of how I knew him as a man, how I knew that there's no way that these charges that they brought against him were real. I knew him. I got to know him, by seeing him interact with his family, by seeing him interact with his friends, and the way he interacted with myself. So it's going to be a good book. And anybody who loved him, just stay tuned. And probably some of the people that didn't love him, you'll have some interest in the book as well. But it's going to be an amazing book. And until I can give it my full attention, I'm not going to release a date. And, Jordan, you'll be probably one of the first ones to know about it because we'll come back on and talk about getting it out.
Absolutely. It sounds awesome. And I want to go to Geraldine. You just heard We Are the World. That was not the actual version. That was when he was working on it. Your thoughts on We Are the World 25 years later?
I thought it was amazing. But the one that Michael actually came out with all the people that loved and supported his cause, I just think that one is such a classic. But it's good to hear his version of it, solo by himself. But I'm just still amazed at what he did when all the people, all the greatest stars in the universe came together to support what he was doing and to support the message, and that's another thing that we always got to remember. Michael, he just wasn't a great entertainer, though he was that, but he came bringing such a beautiful message to this universe. We are the world, somewhere along the line, we need to play that song back on the radios because right now there's so much that's going on in our world. It seems like now that we don't have his voice to be a voice for this world, but if you just go back and listen to what he was saying, we are the world, and we have to make a brighter day. We need to hear Michael's music right now. He was a messenger of love,
No question about it. William, your thought on We Are the World, made by Lionel Richie and Michael Jackson.
Yeah, I listen to that about once a week, and it should be played probably at the beginning of every day on every radio and television. There's so much negativity in the media right now that just depresses people and perverts people. We need to heal that positive stroke, and I don't see the major media doing much to bring Michael's music alive. I think if it's going to be done, it's going to be done by the Michael Jackson community, whether you're a Michael Jackson fan or you're a reporter like I am and Aphrodite Jones was, there was something spiritual about Michael's music, and many of the fans were hooked into Michael's spirit. I was not hooked into Michael's spirit when the trial started. I was just there to see what the truth was. That's all I wanted to. I just wanted to know what was the truth. And I want to say something about, Geraldine really hit it on the head there. I would like to see Mr. Anderson's book when he gets it done, and I know I'm having multiple problems getting my book done, which I didn't even want to write. I just wanted to do a film to show what the trial was, and I already asked Mr. Anderson to play himself in that film. I already asked Tom Mesereau to play himself in that film. And the problem was that we couldn't reach enough positive Michael Jackson fans to agree to give what it would take to do what I call a top-notch film, because Michael wouldn't want us to do a film about his trial unless it was absolutely superbly done, top-notch, and true to the letter of the spoken word in the trial. And that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do a book, because when I do the book, there's things I've never revealed. There's things I've never revealed. Tom Mesereau does not even know. Mr. Anderson does not know. Michael never knew. And I tried when I did finally get to talk to Michael that last time, I tried to tell Michael, but he wanted to talk about saving the world. And he was talking continually and mostly about the MJ universe. And he had already researched, knew my background, and knew I had a degree in environmental science. And that was one of the reasons he was very interested in talking to me that last time we talked. It's, I wanted to tell you, there's a man named Mark Wittenberg. He's from Belgium or Netherlands in Europe. And he happened to walk up to me while the trial jury was out deliberating. They hadn't decided yet. I think it was on the 23rd or 24th, 25th of May. Maybe it was already into June. I can't remember. I'd have to look at my notes. But Mark was at the gate, and he represented thousands of Michael Jackson fans. He described himself as co-leader of a Michael Jackson fan club. And he saw me there, and he somehow knew I was somebody connected with the media, probably because I had my media badge on. And I was standing outside Michael Jackson's outer gate. And I was standing alone, away from all the fans, and I was praying. And I was praying because everything I had seen in that trial screamed at me that Michael was innocent. Just totally, completely innocent. He'd been framed, and they'd been caught so many times by Tom Mesereau and Susan Yu fabricating false evidence, and the jury saw that. And I watched them roll their eyes. And I wanted to do a film that shows those jurors in the first row rolling their eyes. I don't think they were even aware of what they were doing, but they were fed up with Janet Arvizo. They were fed up with Gavin. And so I'm praying there thinking, well, maybe I missed something. Maybe Michael was guilty like I thought when the trial started. I thought he was guilty at least of giving the kid some alcohol, call it Jesus juice or whatever. I thought that was true. And so I figured, so what? So it's a misdemeanor. He gave a minor alcohol. He's going to die anyway in 6 months. But it turned out he wasn't guilty of that either. The boys broke into the wine cellar and helped themselves. That's what was true. These were really trailer trash family, the whole Arvizo, except maybe Mr. Arvizo, the father, who we never saw testify in the trial. I was just really bowled over by this. So I'm praying, did I miss something, oh God? I don't want to be fooled and say this guy's innocent, because I'd already said April 2nd at the Airport Hilton in Santa Maria, where there was a fan-organized event to support Michael, and Michael called in on a phone and spoke to the crowd to thank him, but he didn't personally appear at the airport, but he called in, and everybody got very hush-hush when Michael called in. And I had said at that event, Michael is innocent. On first thought, from what you see in the media, it looks like he's guilty. On second thought, which is a play on my title of my TV show, on second thought, I said, he's not guilty. He's going to go home free, and there's video of that. And that was the first time Majestic ever noticed me. And we got to be much better friends, Majestic and I, after that. I didn't know who Majestic was. I was just there to cover the trial, to see what the truth is, and the truth was he was innocent. So there I'm standing outside of Neverland Gate, and I'm praying. And I'm praying silently to myself, oh God, don't let me be deceived and fooled. If there was something I missed and Michael's really guilty, let it come forward, let it be shown, let it be exposed. I don't want to be predicting. And I sat there, I stood there towards the left side of the entranceway by where the brick wall turns into a split rail fence. And I'm thinking, and quietly came this little, very quiet voice came to me. And it said, and I told Mesro about this when I interviewed him, either on or off the show, I don't remember. And I've told a few people, but not many. I said, this quiet voice came to me and it said, Michael Jackson is completely innocent, and he belongs to me, and I will take him. And no sooner did that little voice, that quiet, very soft voice, say that to me in my mind, in my heart, and I'm just standing alone, and Mark Wittenberg from Europe walks up to me and says, hello, I'm William. He says, hello, he says to William Wagner, me, he says, I'm Mark Wittenberg, I'm co-founder of a Michael Jackson fan, a big one in Europe. What do you think about the trial? And I said, Michael's going to go home free. I've got it confirmed from God. He's not going to go to jail for even one day. This trial is going to be over, and he's going to go home a free man because, in fact, he's innocent. God says so. I saw all the evidence, and I went in with thinking he's guilty of something and came out saying, shame on those prosecutors, shame on our prosecutors. Our prosecutors need to go to prison in a big way. They really seriously need to do some hard prison time. So that's what happened. And if anybody doubts that this happened, you can call Mark Wittenberg in Europe or talk to him on Facebook, and he'll tell you that's true. That's what William told me. William was already declaring Michael's innocent. God says so, and that's the end of it. And so,
all the fans know, William, that you have been on top of this since the last 10 years plus, putting your time and effort, and I know all the Michael Jackson fans appreciate it. But for now, I want to go to Kerry's reaction on what Mr. Wagner is saying, and because I know, Kerry, you are a big believer in prayer, so I want to go to you on what Mr. Wagner just said.
Oh, that's just awesome. I mean, that's his testimony, and I firmly believe that God is ultimately in charge, man. No matter how evil things are and how big the media can make you, God is ultimately in charge of things, and his will is going to be done. Sometimes we don't understand it. I don't understand. I don't have all the secrets to it. I don't push my beliefs on anybody. You got to believe in something. You either do or you don't. I just choose to be a believer in Jesus, and I think Michael was a spiritual person. Michael and I set up, several nights and had some serious talks about prayer and serious talks about, what our differences in beliefs were as it relates to Christianity. And but Michael was a special person, and that's one of the things when I go into my book. I'm going to talk about how he and I, in these conversations, I got to really know him as much as I could. I'm not saying I knew him more than anybody else, but I got to know him as a person, and there is no way in the world.
3 years plus, right?
Yeah, there's no way in the world that this person could have done some of the things that they were accusing him of. And then I kind of got in on the tail end of you and Geraldine's conversation as relates to the witnesses and all of that. I think Debbie Rowe was an amazing witness, but I think the prosecution's witnesses were more damaging to the prosecution than any witness we put on. I think Gavin Arvizo's were the best witnesses for the case. Because once they got on,
right.
a blind man could see these are idiots and they're liars, and they have no. You talk about character assassination. Mesereau and those guys didn't have to do any character assassination. It seems like every time they opened their mouths, you could tell that they were liars, and they weren't credible. So, like I said, ultimately God worked it out, and I believe, based on what I know, the conversations that Michael and I had, Michael's in heaven. He ain't, he's not getting older. If you believe in heaven and what happens when your spirit leaves your body, there's no more pain, no more nothing. It's just glory, and he's at peace, and he's enjoying himself, and ultimately we all have to make that transition. Now, whether you go to where Mr. Wagner says Snedden is, or where you go to where Michael is, you have to do that before you die, before your time is. But it was definitely a God thing, I tell you, because in the natural setting, dealing with the system that was in place, they were there to destroy that man. And I have never seen anything like it. I've seen, being a law enforcement officer, I have dealt with recidivists, people that I've arrested on multiple occasions that have gone to prison and left prison and gone back. I have never seen anybody treated. Yeah, I've never seen, I'm talking about hardened criminals that I know murdered people and did things and worked their way through the system, went in, came back out, and I rearrested them. I've never seen nobody treated the way Mr. Jackson was treated as it relates to the way those guys were treated. They treated him just terribly in terms of, the rulings. It's like, you got to be kidding me, So
totally unbelievable.
I told Michael, don't worry about anything. And we had some real conversations. It's going to be an amazing chapter in my book about some of our rides to and from the court, because he was broken down, and I really had to reinforce, man, God is in charge of this. God has got you in the palm of his hands. Don't worry about what you see. Don't be moved by what you see. Base your living on what God says about what you see, and I really believe that. I really did, because we didn't stand a prayer in the natural setting with all of the crazy rulings, and Mesereau was, and his team was doing an amazing job, but even when they did, they were fighting certain things, trying not to get things entered and trying to keep Mr. Jackson's rights taken care of. The rulings were just unbelievable in terms of what Judge Melville ruled. And it was, I couldn't believe it. I really couldn't. But like I said, God ultimately handled this whole thing, and I believe Mr. Jackson is in a better place now. And I also believe that, you can't kill that. You look at him now, he's probably selling significantly amounts of more records than he did at the latter part of his life. Obviously, he didn't make any new stuff, but his legacy is going to live. And the more evil tries to destroy it, it's going to backfire on him. His children are going to be fine. They're very intelligent. I know the way he raised them. He was a disciplinarian. He was a loving, caring, nurturing dad. Those kids couldn't eat certain things. They didn't watch TV. TV was like a dessert to them. We get to watch this program tonight. Otherwise, they're reading books, studying, getting tutored, and they're going to be fine. And they're going to ensure that his legacy does live on. You'll hear some amazing things from Prince, Paris, and Blanket, I guarantee you. And they're, some certain people have different opinions about some of Jackson family, and those kids are smart and intelligent, and you're not going to be able to pull anything over their eyes, because they're going to be business savvy. They're very intellectual, and I know it. So everything's going to work out. It really is.
Everything happens for a reason, indeed. And Geraldine, I want to go to you. What you thought of what Mr. Kerry Anderson is saying?
Everybody is just so on point here. Everybody, is just, has been strategically assigned by God, I believe. There was something that while Mr. Wagner was speaking, and it was something that also came to my mind, and that was this. A lot of the things that were going on during that whole trial, it wasn't right. And it was, really, really faulty. And yes, a lot of people should be held accountable. But I'm too of the belief system that there may not be justice in the courtroom, but there is justice, And I believe that when you just look at everyone's life, like the father back in '93, ironically, I think it was 5 months after Michael died, he committed suicide. And I'll even, I got to speak for the era that I was a part of, because we've been following it all along. But the accuser from 1993, okay, he got that $20 million settlement, which Michael Jackson did not a dime came out of Michael's pocket. It was paid by the insurance company. He got that money, but that boy has not been living a normal life. He's literally living in hiding. And they even said that the father took that money, the little money that he got, he had like 7 plastic surgeries trying to disguise. So the reason why they went after the money, they never was able to fulfill that dream of making movies. He wanted to make a movie, and who would have supported it anyway with blood money, with extortion money. So no one really ever got out of the deal what they intended to get out of the deal. The only one that I think, Michael did go through a lot of hardship with all of this, as anyone would go through. But, it just, we all go through and we all, go through things that are not really fair and right. But, Michael just, they didn't accomplish what they were trying to accomplish, which was to put him in prison. They didn't accomplish that. That's something I think Michael would not have been able to have dared, though he did go through a lot. But I just thank God that God shielded him. And I too was of the belief system that Michael was walking out of that courtroom, because I know who was fueling me. I was being fueled by God. And I said, I know God is not on the side of a child molester. And so while he was going through the trial, all the fans were like, asking my opinion and what did I think. And I just simply kept reminding them that God was on Michael's side. I said, you just forget about what you're hearing, forget about what they're saying in the news. Just know that God is on Michael's side. I said, God is not supporting the wrong party. God is supporting the right person being wrong. And with full confidence, he came out of there. And I said, I wasn't there back in the day when Noah parted the Red Sea. And you know what I'm getting ready to say, right? I wasn't back there in those days. It was heavily recorded now. But I can say I saw the day when they tried to bring Michael Jackson down, an innocent man, and I personally watched him walk out of that courthouse, a free man, exonerated on all those charges. And I said, that was a modern day Red Sea being parted for us, letting us know that God is still God, and, he's still God all by himself, So I just I'm the spiritual front, and I'm the one that just reminded everybody that, my God was on Michael's side, and though we go through persecution, but they didn't succeed at doing what they were trying to do. That was to destroy his life by putting him in prison for a charge that for a crime that he didn't even commit.
Absolutely, and I do have a question from the chat room. Our good pal and friend Luna Joe, this is for Kerry Anderson, and Luna Joe asked Kerry, did Kerry and Tom Mesereau prepare for the possibility that Michael would be convicted? Kerry Anderson, let me go to you for that.
Wow, that's a good question. Actually, no. I was so in tune to faith in God and what I was praying for. I didn't prepare for him to be convicted at all. Now, what I was prepared for is, my skill set and the security aspect of it. My preparations were for when we walked out, I had to deal with the actual physical threat of saying that they were going to kill him once we got out of the court if he was acquitted. But I was so in tune to God, and I was so steadfast in my beliefs that God was going to deliver him from this prosecutorial nightmare that I actually didn't prepare for him to be convicted. That's interesting. That's a good question, but I didn't. I really didn't. I was not prepared for that at all. I was more concerned about getting him back to the ranch once we were acquitted. And that's what I was continuously praying for throughout the trial. And I was praying that God would protect him physically, mentally, and spiritually, because he was broken down, man. Michael was in a bad place, and I was just praying for his health, just be able to walk out of here, because I firmly believe that God is going to prevail, and he's going to protect you. And I reassured Catherine, because Michael's support team was kind of in disarray too. You know, his family, Catherine was a nightmare. Joe was a nightmare. You know, I've heard different versions of how the ride was to and from, and it's interesting. I heard all these versions from these people that weren't in the car, so how the hell did they know? Because my version is going to be what actually happened in that car, and his support system was, and these were people that were prayer warriors, you know, Reby and Catherine, they were very strong in their Jehovah Witness thing, and Michael really counted on them, and they were broken down. And, you know, what they demonstrated in the car was not, it was just, you know, anybody can become weary, you know, no matter what you believe in and no matter what you pray for, because God doesn't answer your prayer certain ways. Sometimes he doesn't answer it when you want it answered, and sometimes you don't understand why he says, no, not now, but it might be later. I've got something better for you. Sometimes you're praying for things that are beneath you, and God he doesn't want to open that door, but he'll open a bigger door. So you don't understand why he says no, but on the back end of it, you'll see everything's going to work out, you know. So to answer Luna Joe's question, and I'm going to get her for this because she threw me for a loop on this one, but I actually did not prepare for his conviction. I only prepared for him to come out of there, and I was going to put down whoever tried to do something to him. Believe me. And that's going to be an interesting story in the book as well, because there's some things that happened the last day, some of the cooperation that I had gotten prior to the verdict day from law enforcement, and when I told them I wanted to do certain things to counter-assault what this idiot was supposedly going to do, I didn't get any cooperation at all, which made me really think, and it reinforced, like, oh, my God, everybody up here might be in charge or involved in this, whatever kind of threat is going on. But, you know, I ultimately said, you know what, God, I'm going to do what I can do in the natural, and I'm very good at what I do, but you have the ultimate protection, because anybody can be killed, you know, but God is our ultimate, well, he is my ultimate source, and I really believe that he was going to protect us. But I was so much into what I told Michael when I put that bulletproof vest over him and he hit the ground. I said, you know what, I'm going to pray a prayer, and I want you to believe it, and I believe that God is going to have you back inside this bedroom in 3 hours. Now, just believe that. You don't have to understand it. You don't have to rationalize with it. Just believe it. See yourself back in here with your children in 3 hours. Now, let's go. And that's how I left his room, and we went out and got in those cars, and we went. So my belief system was not a conviction. Because earlier, I had thought of that earlier to answer Luna Joe's question, you know, because I was vacillating back and forth when you become weary, and I was like, oh, my God, this is going to be a nightmare. But I always said, if Michael is, not only is if he's convicted, because a couple of times en route to court, he got sick, and Judge Melville threatened that, no, he's not going to no hospital. You bring him here. We got a hospital infirmary thing. It's like, oh, my God. So I always said, if he is in their custody, he will die. Michael Jackson will not live in custody. And that's the only time I thought of him being incarcerated and the judge remanding in the bail and all of that stupid stuff. But I never thought for one day that he was going to be convicted, and I thought we were going to walk out of there. And that's what my prayer was. That's why I was steadfast in my faith. I was immovable on that, and I was going to just count on God. And thank God he answered.
Absolutely.
You know,
And
yeah.
You did mention Debbie Rowe, who actually was called by the prosecutors, but turned out to be a defense witness. Let's listen to some sound, and we'll talk on the other side.
Michael Jackson's ex-wife, Debbie Rowe, proved she could be an unpredictable witness for prosecutors. Now the defense is taking its turn questioning her under cross-examination. NBC's Jennifer London is following the trial from the courthouse in Santa Maria, California. Hi, Jennifer.
Well, hi, Melissa. Debbie Rowe's testimony was meant to corroborate testimony from the accuser's mother that they were forced to participate in a rebuttal video and that it was highly scripted. And while Rowe did say that her interview lasted for 9 hours and that one of Michael Jackson's associates frequently would interject and have her rephrase her answers, and she did say she did the interview so she could see her children, she never said she was forced to do the interview, and she never said it was scripted. On cross-examination, she said she wanted to give spontaneous answers and she wanted to help Michael Jackson. Also, she said she thought that Michael Jackson was very far removed from what his associates were actually doing, the defense attempting to distance Jackson from his unindicted co-conspirators. Debbie Rowe showing a lot of animosity toward Jackson's associates, saying they are liars and that they were trying to take advantage of Michael Jackson. At one point, she called them, quote, opportunistic vultures. For her ex-husband, however, Rose still seems to have a lot of affection for. At one point, she looked directly at Jackson and she said, there are different Michaels. She started to cry and she said, there's my Michael. And she took a moment to try and compose herself. And then she said, then there's the Michael everyone else sees. Many are now wondering, after hearing Rose's testimony, why the prosecution even called her.
She distances Michael Jackson from the conspiracy. She makes him look like a victim of all of the people surrounding him. She makes prosecutors look bad. She makes the Santa Barbara Sheriff's Department look bad. You could essentially distill her testimony and use it as a closing argument if you're Michael Jackson's defense attorneys.
Cross-examination of Debbie Rowe does continue at this hour, and Melissa, the prosecution will have another chance to re-question her. It is called redirect, and they will have that opportunity when the defense is finished with its cross-examination.
Okay, we got about 10 minutes left. I want to talk about this final witness for the prosecution that found her to be a good witness for Tom Mesereau and the defense. First, let me start with you, Geraldine Hughes. Geraldine, what's your thoughts on Debbie Rowe actually coming to the aid of Michael Jackson?
I think Debbie was a very, very credible witness, and you know, she kind of did what we were all kind of hoping that she would do, and that was to support Michael, because, you know, if anybody knew Michael, you know, the role that she played with Michael was always, you know, it was never to hurt Michael. She was a dear friend of Michael. You know, we were just kind of surprised. You know, everybody was kind of surprised at first, but then what she ultimately wound up doing on the stand was what we were ultimately, you know, hoping that she would do, and that was to really, you know, support him. You know, but that just goes to show that they were making so many mistakes trying to prove that he was guilty. They wound up, you know, everything they called themselves doing, it worked out for his good.
No question. Let me go to William Wagner. Your take on Debbie Rowe actually flipping.
Yeah, I was not surprised completely. I was surprised that she even got called by the prosecutors. My guess would have been she would have been talking for the defense witnesses, but, you know, she did get a divorce from Michael, and there was a reason for that divorce. And what I noticed, and I looked at Debbie very hard when she came in, watched her walk up and take the seat. I think I was seated right behind Catherine Jackson that day. And I'm thinking, this is the bombshell witness that Snake Snedden had told us about the prior week. He had a bombshell witness. Oh boy, this is going to do it. And she gets on and she was a bombshell. Yeah, she was a bombshell, but not in the direction that Snake Snedden, I stutter sometimes when I say really evil names. you know, it was a catastrophe. And it's just like when Gavin Arvizo was asked to point out the date on the magazine he claimed Michael gave him, and Mesereau asked him to read the date on the magazine. Now that he's 10 or 11, 12, sometimes been asked, when were you last at Neverland? And then they asked him, I think on the last day, read the date to the jury, and he had, you know, he turned and this is what is interesting, and it's not in the court record. And Mr. Anderson, I don't think was in the courtroom that day, but what was interesting is he didn't look at I was in the court every day. He wasn't, were you there every day? I thought you waited outside that day.
No, I never waited outside. I was there every day.
Yeah, okay, well, good. You will note, and Anderson will tell you too, when he turned back, Gavin barely mumbled. You couldn't hear his answer, so Mesereau had to ask him again to say the date on the magazine. And the boy kind of looked, not at Mesereau, not at the jury. He kind of looked over directly at either Auchincloss or Snedden, and he sort of shrugged his shoulders before his mouth opened.
Prosecutors?
Yeah, he looked at the prosecutors and shrugged his shoulders like, oh, shit, now what do I do? The date's October of 03. It's the magazine hadn't even been printed at the time he claims he was molested. Yeah, the magazine, the Daily Legal magazine. Yeah, and so, you know, and that's not on the court record because he didn't say anything. He didn't say, hey, Mr. Snedden, how do I get out of this? I'm stuck with my lies. How do I get out of this? And when Debbie took the witness stand, I saw Snedden kind of do the same thing. He kind of lowered his profile in his head, like as if to say, oh, my God, she's not saying what she promised to say. And that's what happened again. And Snedden didn't know this, but I had somebody watching Snedden entertain Debbie Rowe when they took her out for dinner and wining her and dining her. I had my own person keeping an eye on what they were doing at that restaurant. And they were trying to convince her with good food and wine that you're going to get Michael Jackson's kids, you're going to be Queen of Neverland. None of this did they know, and none of this did I reveal ever before. But I wasn't terribly surprised. I was just surprised she was even talking to them at all, because I didn't really believe she would turn on Michael. And when you saw Debbie take the stand, when she was done or almost done, she looked at Michael, and I think she said it out loud, I love you, Michael. Did you see that, Mr. Anderson?
Yes, I did.
So, you know, this isn't what, I think she mouthed the words. I'm not sure if she actually spoke the words. I have to look at the court record, but there were a lot of things, and I would look over at the jury and see some of their eyes rolling in their head like, when will this trial be over? Please, God, let it end. We can't take it anymore. And when I interviewed some of the jurors in the following year or two after the trial, that's what they said. Yeah, we just wanted that thing to be over. We could see this was going nowhere. Even Ellie Cook was upset with Tom Snedden. And I interviewed her, and I got her a little bit on tape till she realized I was recording her, and then she didn't want to be recorded anymore. But she said some things I won't say here, but when my book comes out, I hope it'll lead to a film that'll depict this trial, because you had to see this. And there were other things, like when Janet went up to the witness stand, and I'm sure Mr. Anderson probably noticed this. She walked in front of the jury, and she dragged her left hand on the railing that was in front of the jurors and looked them over her left shoulder like Gloria Swanson in a silent movie, looking at them like, you must believe me, I'm touching the railing, don't you feel my pain? And it was, I've never seen a witness do that to a jury before, and I was bowled over. I'm like, what is she doing? Does she think she's Gloria Swanson? And then a week later, remember that, Mr. Anderson?
I didn't see that, but they did some weird things in there, I tell you.
They did some weird things.
At least.
I was not just watching the witness. I was watching how the witnesses went up and left the witness stand. And a week or two later, Janet's mother comes in to testify. I'm getting old and my memory slips a little bit, but I think it was a week later, Janet's mother comes in to testify. grandmother of Gavin Arvizo, and she does the same thing. She drags her fingers, not as dramatically as her daughter did, but she does the same thing, and I'm wondering, did Sneddon or somebody tell her to do that? Because to me, if I was a juror, that is such an obvious play for sympathy. It reeks, you know, and I just thought this, and it's not on the court record. The court record only records what the witness and the judge say, and the prosecutors and Tom Mesereau say. That's all that's on the court record. It doesn't record the jury's eyes rolling in their head. It doesn't record a lot of these little
record all that
antics.
kind of stuff. Absolutely.
And that's,
but I do want to give Kerry Anderson the final word. I want to give Kerry Anderson the final word before we have Tom Mesereau. So, Kerry, what is your thought with Debbie Rowe and what Mr. Wagner was saying with the magazine before we say goodnight?
Yeah, there were some. Debbie Rowe was an amazing witness. I didn't know Debbie Rowe. So I was. Everybody had been telling me about Debbie Rowe, and I heard negative things, I heard good things, but she was an amazing witness. I would have considered her, if I was the prosecution, a hostile witness. And based on what I know and my limited understanding is that when you prepare a witness and you think they're going to testify on your behalf and then they totally flip, that's exactly what she did. She was an amazing witness. I think a very important witness. On Michael's behalf, because she told it like it was. It was very believable. She had a lot of credibility, and it was just amazing what she did. She did an outstanding job. It really showed the love that she had for Michael, and I have no idea what preparation they did with her, because had she gave any indication that she was going to testify to what she testified to, she shouldn't have been on the stand for the prosecution. One of the other persons that testified against Michael was the maid. I don't know if Mr. Wagner remembers this. This was the lady that stole the sketch and sold it to Inquirer magazine for $40,000. She stole a sketch that Michael made of Elvis, and she sold it to Inquirer magazine. But what Tom Mesereau revealed is that Michael paid $80,000 out of his pocket for her son's cancer surgery that was successful. And those are the kind of things that, you know, should have been revealed prior to that. I mean, if we get you on cross-examination and can reveal that kind of stuff, your testimony is going to be blown out of the ocean. And that's some of the amazing lawyering that Tom Mesereau and Susan Yu did. They totally out-lawyered Sneddon and his team. It was unbelievable, you know. But Debbie Rowe did do an amazing job, and that really it kind of helped me deal with Debbie Rowe. Michael and I had some conversations about Debbie after the fact, because he asked me, you know, what do you think? And I said, you know what, because they were going through some child custody stuff, and I said, if you sat down and talked to her, because what I got from that stand is that this lady loves you. This lady doesn't want to hurt you. If you stop all these dealing with these lawyers and this child custody stuff and just sit down and talk to her, which they ultimately did, and maybe things can be worked out amicably between the two of you, and you wouldn't be bickering, because from what I saw that lady say on the stand, she loves you, and she is in your corner. She did not acquiesce to what they wanted her to say. So,
no question about it. Yeah. As we wrap this segment up, I want to go around the panel and get one word to describe 10 years later. Here we are, 10 years later, of the Michael Jackson vindication. Let me start with you, Mr. William Wagner. Give me one word that describes the 10 years later of Michael Jackson vindicated.
One word.
One word.
I would say incomplete. Because until the other prosecutors go to jail, the justice is not complete until the prosecutors are in prison.
Good one. Let's go over to our friend Geraldine Hughes. One word, if you could describe 10 years later of the Michael Jackson case. How would you describe it? With one word.
The one word would be, I thought it ended amazingly in Michael's favor, and I just still say, it was amazing how it concluded.
Absolutely, I totally agree. And Kerry, one word for you that describes 10 years of Michael Jackson being vindicated.
Jordan, I can't do it in one word. I can do it in 3. The legacy will continue.
The legacy will continue. Okay, Kerry, where could the fans find and keep up with you as far as that book? A lot of fans have been talking about it in the chat.
Yeah, I'm going to get back to it. It's going to be on my Agape Facebook page. And then, like I said, when I get back into it deeply and give a definitive date as it's to release, then I'll be able to, I'll come on your show and do a couple of other things on Facebook. But I'll get a hold of everybody and let them know.
Okay, and Geraldine Hughes, how do people get in touch with the book for you if they want to purchase it?
Redemption, The Truth Behind the Michael Jackson Child Molestation Allegation book is available on Amazon.com. I mean, you'll find it a lot of, if you just put Geraldine Hughes and Redemption or Geraldine Hughes and Michael Jackson, you'll see a lot of places where it's available. Right now, we're in the process of, we want to turn Redemption into a movie. We're trying to, we want the world to know that Michael was innocent back in '93, and that story has still not been told. So right now, the biggest effort that we're putting together is raising the money so that we can produce a film that'll go out all over the world, so that the world, just like The Lie went, we want the truth to go out and to vindicate Michael's name, and to clear, to protect his legacy, that the world would know that he was innocent, he was never, and the real story has not been told, the extortion scheme. So we want them to know what really happened with that in 1993.
No question about it, and thank you so much for joining us. And William, where can the audience reach you if they want to get in touch with your work? I know you have a YouTube channel with your name, William Wagner, right? And you're on Facebook.
I've got a YouTube, and I'm on Facebook, but I never do Twitter. I don't have time to do Twitter. I'm editing, I'm researching, and I'm video documenting. And I rarely have time to go on Twitter, and Twitter often gives impulse remarks, and I don't like to give impulse remarks. I like to have it well thought out.
Twitter does that.
Yeah, so it's correctly
Twitter does
understood.
do that, in fact, but I want to thank you. You added a lot to the program, being that it's the 10-year anniversary. You were very smart and intelligent of everything you said. So thank you so much for joining us on this 10-year anniversary special. And finally, to Mr. Kerry Anderson, my pal, I'd like to thank you. And maybe we will do a show on the 25th. I haven't decided, but if we do, I know I'm going to pull your number. So I just want to say thank you so much.
I want to thank you, and I'm going to be getting in as it relates to my book, Jolanda Vandergrift. She's going to be assisting me with getting the information out to the various fan bases. So if you monitor her website as well, she'll be able to help us with that.
Absolutely, yes. She does have What Did Happen to Michael Jackson, and Luna Joe 67 is her YouTube channel. Thanks a million, guys. We will speak to you soon. Maybe definitely on. We'll definitely do something for his birthday, and we'll have all you guys back. So thanks a million for joining us. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, you could speak to Tom Mesereau at the top of the hour, 347-857-2950.